Good evening, everybody. Tonight we have the privilege of talking about autism and ADHD nutrition with our special guest, Julie Matthews. So let's invite Julie and we get into the conversation real soon. Oh, let me just see. Okay. In the meantime, if you guys are live, just say where you're from and we'll get into it. Let me just see. Struggling to find Julie. This is interesting. Okay. Invite again. Oh, there. Yes. I hope it's gonna work. So invite again. Sometimes these things take time, so we'll just give it a minute or two. Hi to everyone that has been joining us live. I'm sure this is going to be an excellent discussion. So just hang in there as we are waiting for Julie to come on. It seems like we are struggling, but it's okay. So tonight you have something really exciting to look forward to. So Julie is a medical nutritionist and she's got her master's degree in medical nutrition. So she knows what she's talking about. She specializes in ADHD and autism nutrition, especially autism nutrition. So it's definitely something of great value. And it's an honor to have her in this discussion. So I hope that she would be able to join us. In the meantime, I'm going to see if I can just do something from here. Yay! Okay. Let's try again. Oh, let's do this. Accept. Oh, okay. Okay. Well, I can see Julia's live, but we are struggling to join. Hang on, let's do this. Let's do that and do this again.
Hello!
Yay! Finally!
I know. Hello.
Hi, thank you for joining us, Julie. It's a big honor to have you with us tonight. I'm looking forward to this discussion so much.
Me too. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, so Julie, I'm just going to quickly introduce you to everybody. And then I'm going to ask you to just tell us a little bit more about yourself. And then we'll take the discussion from there.
Great.
Okay, so Julie is a medical nutritionist. She is a published nutrition researcher. And we will be discussing some of her publications a bit later. So she published a study in 2023 September where she compared 13 different therapeutic diets and their effectiveness in the autism spectrum disorder. And I will be posting the link to that study for everyone to go through it themselves in the stories afterwards. So Julie is also the author of Nourishing Hope for Autism, which is a book. It's an excellent book. And then she's the founder of Bio-Individual Nutrition Institute. This is a course that is available both for practitioners and parents who would like to understand how to support someone in need. So Julie, I know this introduction cannot do it justice. So I would love to, if you just tell us a little bit more about yourself and how did you start having a passion for autism nutrition?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm actually a certified nutrition consultant, and my master's degree is in medical nutrition. So that's a little bit about that. I have been doing this for 22 years, working with kids with autism. As you mentioned, I have published some studies. I just have a brand new book that literally came in like a couple days ago. It's not even out in the world yet.
Yeah, that's exciting.
I'm very excited. It came in the mail a couple days ago, and it is going to be live in March 18th. So I've been busy writing that. So I write books, I do research, I see clients, and I've been doing this for many years. And how I came upon it, I feel as though it was a bit of divine intervention. It was just sort of meant to be. I met somebody very early on in my career that recovered his kids from autism, and he got me going down this road. And I've been very passionate about it ever since, because I've seen how beneficial it can be.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, there's always a story linked as to why somebody goes into something or specializes in something. So a little bit of a backstory why I'm specifically interested in this topic is because my youngest daughter has ADHD. And when she was about two and a half, somebody invited me to a morning where they discussed nutrition and green smoothies and all of those kind of things. And at that stage, I was a mother of 3 under 5. So it was exhausting and everything. And I didn't even want to go to that morning's discussion. I just like, you know what, I really am not interested, because the only thing I'm interested in is chocolate and coffee. And that was my lifestyle. And I eventually went to the morning, and I was so pleasantly surprised. That was for me a turning point. And so all the curiosity started, and I started researching more things, and I started to, apply a little bit of the things food-wise, changed the diet at home a little bit, took the little one off of gluten and dairy. And within, I think, 6 weeks, we saw a drastic difference.
Wow.
So for me, this is a topic dear to my heart, because I know the power that there is in food to help somebody that is struggling. So yeah, that's just my backstory. So let's start with the conversation.
Sure.
And so I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. And the first one I would like to address is, what are some of the contributing factors to these conditions?
So if we want to look at neurodevelopmental delays, particularly autism, but things like ADHD and other types of conditions, there are a variety of different systems and conditions in the body that contribute to what's happening in the brain, because the body and the brain are connected. So, and everybody's different. So what might affect one person might not affect another. One of the more common ones is digestive issues, whether it's constipation, diarrhea, bloating, pain, that kind of thing. However, I often run into people that say their child doesn't have any of that going on. And so it could be a variety of different things. But for example, the gut and the brain are connected. So when you have challenges in the gut, you can get all sorts of different challenges, from digesting or absorbing your nutrients, digesting your foods properly so that they don't create chemicals that can affect the brain. So the gut is a big one, and part of the gut is the microbiome and all the beneficial bacteria and the balance of microbes microbes we have in the gut, and that is a very big factor. Most people may not know. I mean, they're microscopic. How do you know unless you've done a test or unless you have symptoms that might guide you to suspecting that? Inflammation, oxidative stress, immune challenges, detoxification challenges, methylation, and a variety of transsulfuration and sulfation are all some of the biochemical pathways that are impacted in both of these conditions, but also you could take even just neurological conditions, things like anxiety or, focus, behavior. They have some component of the brain, and they all have factors of underlying, often inflammation, digestive issues, things like that. So in fact, I might argue that all chronic conditions stem from challenges in these areas, maybe mitochondrial dysfunction for some, and this can lead to a variety of nutrient deficiencies and go on from there.
Yeah, no, fully agree. Fully agree. So I remember the first thing I listened to, which was autism related, was The Broken Brain by Dr. Mark Hyman.
Yeah.
And back then it was like, wow, when he said, about the fecal transplants, that makes such a huge difference for some people. And is that something that you've seen in your own journey with the people that you work with, that it's something that people experiment with and have seen great results?
Well, this is a good question because my mentor, Dr. James Adams, who has been part of the studies that I've been part of, he actually was one of the pioneers in microbiota transplant therapy for children with autism. And he's done some great research and papers on that. Now, it's only allowed currently, this procedure is only allowed if you have Clostridia difficile infection. And so it is not currently something that your average person's able to do at this point outside of, say, a research setting or something. So I haven't seen it per se because it's rare that currently people are getting them done. But the research is quite compelling and interesting and does paint a picture of how powerful the microbiome is. So what they do is they take fecal matter from a healthy person, a neurotypical person, and they give it to somebody with autism, and they found really amazing results. And not only amazing results for their gut, but also for their autism symptoms. And those results continued long past the time of the treatment. So there's some very compelling and interesting evidence or research on the topic.
Okay, but it's just unfortunate that it's not really in practice that much yet. So it's not really available for people to do. That's sad to hear. Now, I thought because it's been so many years since I listened to it that, it would have been available already.
Maybe someday soon.
I hope so, because that sounds very promising. Okay, so, and then there's a couple of other things that I think is very common amongst specifically the autism discussions, and that is the heavy metals like the mercury and the lead and even aluminum. And is that something that you feel can sometimes be like a contributing factor, or is that like a root cause for certain things to go wrong?
It's always hard to distinguish the difference between a root cause and a contributing factor.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to know if the chicken or the egg was first. And I would say that they're all contributing factors. Okay. But we don't know which thing. Like, did they have a system that already was a poor detoxifier to begin with? Was that the root cause? And this was the contributing factor? It's hard to know. Is it that the substance created some damage and that contributed to other things? So that's a little bit hard to say, but I would say people with autism often have poor detoxification. Methylation and transsulfuration are required to have good detoxification capabilities, to be able to make glutathione, to have metallothionein, and these are required for all types of toxins, including heavy metals. So it would make sense that somebody might be more susceptible to toxins in that particular situation.
Okay, yeah, well, that makes sense. Okay, so can you explain to us what is methylation and why it could possibly play such a big role in these conditions?
Yes. Okay. Methylation is, I'm trying to think of a simple way to say it. It's a way of passing something called a methyl group from one thing to another. So it kind of activates or contributes to the functioning of hundreds of different things in the body. And this methyl donor we need active folate, and we need B12, and we need a variety of nutrients in order to be able to make and recycle these methyl groups. What we know in autism is that there are challenges in various places along this pathway, let's just say. And so it's really important. One of the main things you might hear about is DNA methylation. So it's really important for the proper expression of our genes. And so you can imagine if it's going to affect that, it can affect lots of different things. Methylation also affects our energy, our metabolism, our mitochondria. It affects our neurotransmitter production. It can affect detoxification. There are so many different things that it can affect. I mean, one of the big ones that we talked about early on is inflammation. So as you can see, this one underlying / contributing factor can then affect all of these other contributing factors. So that's why I said it's like sometimes it's hard to know where it all started, but they kind of compound upon each other because they're each contributing factors on their own, but then they affect each other as well.
Yes. Okay. So when it comes to methylation, do you think that it is safe to say not everybody has a genetic problem with methylation, but sometimes there can just be like, it's like the epigenetics, it's the environment that is affecting how the genes are expressed. And so do you think that, well, for some people, they definitely do have like the MTFR gene variants. But other people don't, but they are also struggling maybe with methylation or the sulfation pathways. How does these differences come into play when it comes to ADHD and autism?
Well, there's many ways, there's many genes involved in proper methylation. So probably dozens, right? There's a number of them. There's many of them just in the folate cycle alone. And then there's several that contribute to B12. And then all along the pathway to take methionine down to, methylation to, or, SAM to homocysteine, and all the way around. I mean, that alone is tons of different genes and many different nutrients. So if you think about, you need all of these things kind of running smoothly in order for the water to kind of flow through the channel, right? And if it gets blocked up anywhere, it can affect things. So it doesn't have to just be MTHFR. It could be many different things. And then, as you said, methylation is only one thing. There's also transsulfuration and sulfation and sulfate, and these can be impacted by nutrient deficiencies. And what causes the nutrient deficiencies? Is it gut imbalances? Is it digestion challenges? Is it the microbiome that causes depletion of certain important nutrients? So yes, you can have problems with these pathways and these systems and these symptoms without having, let's say, MTHFR.
Okay. Yeah, great, fantastic. Let's see. Okay, so a topic that I would like to discuss, which is a little bit complex, but I would like you to give as much as possible information on this specific one, because I think this can contribute to so many people's symptoms, whether it's just brain inflammation that they are struggling with and try to reduce, or whether it is, a whole bunch of other issues, but this contributes greatly. And this is the oxalates, salicylates, the amines, the sulfites, the glutamates, phenols, and all of those sensitivities. So can you just deep dive for us into that? Can you explain what they are? What is it that they do to the body? How is it that the body, really struggle with these things?
Yes. Before we get there, just for people that some people might be ready to dive into all of this. As practitioners, you and I probably know lots of practitioners ready to dive in. But if these words and concepts are new to you, there are simple things that you can start with and simple dietary choices that you can make. These are the more what I would consider advanced. Now, that doesn't mean that someone might not go to this first, because there are certain things that people might go straight to these diets. But if you are brand new and you don't know where to start, you might start with some other things first. And we can get into those if we have time, like taking out junk food and things like that. But each of these are different compounds found in foods, and if our biochemistry is not working sufficiently in a variety of different ways, it can affect our ability to tolerate or process any number of these. And so probably each one of those things you mentioned has a bit of a different pathway or a bit of a different underlying factor contributing to the inability to handle it. For example, salicylates are very common in fruits and vegetables and plant foods. And while they're contained in wonderfully nutritious foods, if we don't have the right conditions and nutrients, they can create a lot of hyperactivity, irritability, aggression, sleeping challenges, all sorts of things for some people. So for me, it's always looking back at what's the underlying factors, how do we work on those so that we can process these things better, so we can eat these healthy foods. Then if we want to look, amines are kind of similar. They're another type of phenol. Depending on the type of amine, they're processed a little bit differently, and they're found in different foods. So amines are found somewhat in plant-based foods, but also in fermented foods, animal foods, things like that. Similar symptoms. Glutamate can be naturally occurring, or it can be found in additives like MSG, for example. That one can create a lot of hyperactivity, aggression, irritability, things like that. And then there are certain genes that regulate that, certain people that are more susceptible, but also things that you can do. Let's see, you talked about oxalates. Oxalates are another one. We often think of those with kidney stones, but in people with autism, we did find those levels raised. And in this great study that was done with Susan Owens and some of her colleagues, they found that they were significantly higher in kids with autism, and you didn't have to have kidney stones in order for it to be a factor for them. And it can really create inflammation and oxidative stress and challenges in the gut and all sorts of things. So those are just a few of them. That's a lot of what I do, and what my book is based on is a personalized nutrition approach for autism. So starting with 12 steps, simple steps to get people started. Things like take out the artificial additives, the colors, the glutamate, the MSG, those types of things. Make the diet healthier, go on from there, and then get to, okay, what are the most common symptoms with each of these food categories? Because they are somewhat distinct, and that can be really helpful. And then what are the foods they're contained in? Are they eating a lot of those foods? All of those types of things to help somebody just step by step figure out what the best nutrition plan for their child might be, or themselves.
Okay. Well, thank you. So basically, all of these things, oxalates, salicylates, amines, sulfides, glutamate, phenols, these are all plant chemicals.
Good question. Amines are not. Amines are more of the process of fermentation that liberates the amino acids, but there are some in foods, but there are also some in animal foods. Glutamate also can be in plant or animal foods, but salicylates and oxalates are mostly in plant foods, but different plant foods. So you kind of have to take each food compound by itself. FODMAPs we didn't go into. FODMAPs are fermentable carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are pretty much found in plants, so those are going to be plant foods as well. But again, different plant foods than oxalates, and salicylates.
Okay, that's wonderful. All right, let's see. Okay, tell us about the study that you published of the 13 different diets and
Yes.
which was the most effective diets and why? Why do you think that those diets were the ones that you can say, well, this is the reason why this was the most effective?
That is a hard thing to answer. Our paper was on the ratings of the effectiveness of 13 therapeutic diets. So we looked at things like a healthy diet, a low sugar diet, but then we also looked at low salicylate diets, things like the Feingold diet, or grain-free diets like the specific carbohydrate diet or the paleo diet, the ketogenic diet. Then we looked at a gluten-free diet, casein-free diet, all sorts of different things. And the thing was, if you take all of them as a whole, they were more effective as a whole than, interestingly, nutraceutical supplements, and significantly more as well than psychiatric and seizure medications in people with autism. And the negative adverse effects were significantly less than in psychiatric and seizure medications. So if we take them all as a whole, they all performed very well in comparison to these other things. Again, I'm a fan of nutritional supplementation, and of course, proper use of medications when they're required or needed, by their doctor, of course. But that's not my scope. So my scope's on the foods and the nutrients, and I do think nutrients are wonderful, but I think people don't put enough weight in the power of diet, which is what I really like about this paper. So all over, they did well. Some did better than others, but it depends which metric we looked at. So we looked at about 700 data points. And so depending on how I slice and dice the data to you, one diet might be better than another. So the best diet for overall benefit was a healthy diet, which I found really interesting. Like we could, leave now, just do a healthy diet, and that was the top diet for overall benefit. And it's not complex. It doesn't require you to understand any of the science or the biochemistry or anything like that. No adverse effects. Now, from there, if we look at overall benefit, the Feingold diet, which is a diet free of artificial additives as well as low in salicylates, that diet was one of the top diets as well. If we look at it in terms of which diet was the best for which symptoms, because we also looked at each diet and which symptoms it improved the most, which symptoms improved the most with which diets, and that we see a bit of a different picture. So when we look at overall benefit, the ketogenic diet was lower on the list.
Wow.
It had higher adverse effects and it had a little bit lower overall benefit. But when you look at the symptom improvements, it had some of the very highest symptom improvements in various things. Wow. Of course, we know seizures being one. Yes. We've known that for decades, but other things as well, attention, cognition, things like that. Now, I wouldn't say necessarily jump to that diet first just because it was first in certain symptoms. It's a little more difficult. It is a little more restrictive, but for the person that needs that diet, that has those underlying factors, the particular underlying factors that affect it, it can be a very, very powerful diet. So it didn't do the best overall, but it did great compared to certain symptom improvements. The Feingold diet was another one that did really well in overall benefit and really well in symptom improvement. So 45% of people that did the Feingold diet had improvement in their hyperactivity. So that's enormous. Almost half of them improved their hyperactivity. And then also things like irritability, which is another very common one I see. 38% improved in irritability. So something as simple as changing from certain fruits to other fruits or certain vegetables to other vegetables created an environment where they didn't have the aggression and the irritability and all of that they had previously. So I think it's a really great way to go. Let's see. Those are a few of like the top highlights. Generally speaking, attention was the number one thing that improved with if we put all the diets together as a group. Attention, cognition, irritability were some of the really biggest ones, but also health improved. Hyperactivity, aggression, anxiety, constipation, diarrhea. So lots of symptoms even across the board, and that's just some of them. So yeah, it was an exciting paper because it showed so much. And again, being that I'm all about personalizing diet and nutrition strategies, this paper helped us to see that certain symptom improvements were more common with certain diets, and that we could start to use the symptoms as a way to help guide us, which again, I was happy to see, because in my book, I go through, you know, each diet goes into the common symptoms that I see improve. And, you know, it was good to see that that was consistent in the paper that we did.
Oh, that is exciting. Now, can you tell us what is a healthy diet? I mean, everybody has their own version of what that word means. So
Yes.
what was the definition of a healthy diet?
Good question. In the paper, the definition of a healthy diet was a diet high in vegetables, fruits, meat, by protein, it wasn't meat, protein. So high in good whole foods, and low in junk food. So low in sugar, additives, processed foods, things like that.
Yeah, well, that makes absolute sense. I mean, that's basically what I did with my kid, apart from the fact that, I mean, I did the gluten-free, dairy-free removal as well. Yes. And I mean, I saw great results with that. So in the study, I believe you also did the gluten-free, dairy-free, or casein-free diet.
Oh,
how did that one perform comparing to the others?
Yes, that one did well as well. It was the #1 diet that was used by the most families, and I think for good reasons. It's a great diet. It's one of, you know, the diets that after a healthy diet, I typically suggest looking at. It did well. It was in the top contenders, or in the top performers for cognition, language and communication, diarrhea, social interaction and understanding, sensory sensitivity, stimming, and that perseveration, those types of things. So it did quite well as well.
Okay, excellent. So, okay, because I think when people start on this journey, the first things that they hear most often about is gluten and dairy as an inflammatory food for most people. And so that's like normally the first thing. It can sometimes be the most difficult thing to change, but it's sometimes the first thing people reach for. So, and would you say if you combine the gluten and dairy free with, let's say, what you would call a healthy diet, high fiber foods like fruits and vegetables, which is complex carbohydrates, and high protein, decent amount of good quality fats, would that combination be very beneficial for both ADHD and autism then?
I think so. The other paper that we did looked at a healthy gluten-free, casein-free, and soy-free diet, along with some other nutritional supplementation and interventions. But that was the diet that we used for that randomized control trial for autism. And it did very well. It helped improve hyperactivity in the kids with autism, attention and focus in the kids with autism. So it wasn't an ADHD paper, but it improved those symptoms. And so, yeah, I think that is a good approach for most people. Obviously, everybody's different, and you know, we have to take things one by one, but generally speaking, those are, I think, very solid principles. Putting those healthy principles together with a gluten-free and dairy-free diet, I think, is often a really great way to go.
I want to go slightly off script. I want to ask you a different question. Histamine. Right. How does histamine affect the brain with children, either with autism or with ADHD, and does it play a big role?
Yeah, okay, good question. Yes, I do think it plays a big role. Dr. Theo Hardy's did a number of studies. He looked at the mast cell activation, and when the mast cells are activated, they release histamine, and he found a very strong association with histamine issues and autism, and has nutritional supplements that he created to help quench that histamine in the body. Histamine is it's an inflammatory chemical, and so it can affect inflammation in the body, in the brain, in the gut. It can affect, lots of different things. So therefore, it can affect symptoms and a variety of different symptoms as well.
Okay, so yeah, okay, well, that's good to know. And so histamine isn't always just when you have a rash or, a runny nose. It's also a neurotransmitter. It's got other functions as well. So can you maybe just explain that to people that might not know that?
Yeah, so it does all sorts of things. So it also, as you mentioned, those for sure, and even things like in the stomach, it can affect our ability to release acid. So for some people, too much histamine can create too much acid in their stomach. So it is, like you said, it's a neurochemical, but it is a chemical, and it does lots of different things in the body that can contribute to this inflammation in the brain, and the ability for us to, it can affect our ability to be calm and focus, and all of those types of things as well. So it can have kind of direct and indirect effects on the brain.
Okay. So would you say it is forgive me, English is not my first language. Is it excitatory factor that it has on the brain? Is that the right word?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so, yeah, it's, again, different people might respond to different things differently, but yes, it can have a lot of different effects, and also it can be compounded by environmental factors like mold or infections that also stimulate the mast cells to release chemicals. And there are a variety of chemicals that might release, many of which are inflammatory, and so when we have environmental exposures, that can again compound the issues that somebody might have with histamine. And then when our body's too overloaded with histamine, then we don't, and one of the things, you need methylation to handle histamine.
Yes.
So that's one. I mean, there's other pathways for addressing histamine as well, but that's another factor. And then the histamine we eat from our food that comes in certain foods can be too much for our system to handle at some point in time. And so that's where low histamine diets can be helpful.
Okay, wonderful. I read something interesting earlier this week, I believe, where the guy explained that specifically with girls, when they reach puberty and their symptoms become worse, it's also because estrogen stimulates histamine. So
very good point. Yes. Do you want to
because
say
I mean,
anything?
I've seen that in my own house. I've got two daughters, and definitely some symptoms has become more severe once puberty started. And with one of my daughters, it was depression. So, and I mean, I've been digging and I've been looking for answers everywhere to explain. So I've stumbled across so many different things. And if I look at histamine, and the estrogen connection, I think it really does play a big role.
That is a really, really good point. And, I always like to be, nourishing hope and, try to, but so, it is a little tough to say sometimes, but yeah, puberty can be a tough time, let's just say, for any of us, but particularly for kids with any kind of neurological or neurodevelopmental type of condition. And that's a very, very good connection to make. I have seen that as well. So I'm really glad that you brought that up.
Okay, excellent. Well, thank you for confirming it.
Yes.
Okay, so excellent. Let's see the next one. Okay. What are the most common food intolerances with ADHD and autism?
I would say the two that we talked about are gluten and dairy. So wheat and the other gluten grains, and casein that's found in a variety of different dairy products. Those are probably the top two. Then soy, I would say, is another one. Corn for some people, and then a variety of these other intolerances that we just spoke of. I think another really common one that I see a lot is salicylates. Yeah, I'd say that those are some of the most common?
Somewhere, I don't know if it was in your research study or in your course, you spoke about eggs as well as one of the top contributing or one of the most common intolerances. Now, that is not something that I am familiar with because, I mean, from my side of everything that I research, it's eggs are good. It's a good source of protein. It's a good source of choline, and our
Yes.
brains need choline. Like, for instance, I've got my daughter now on a supplement, the youngest one, which I think it's Dr. Ben Lynch, his supplement, Optimal Focus. And so when I listened to him explain how the supplement works, he said it's to increase choline in the brain, and it's also to block the areas which it's not digest, but process a choline really fast and breaks it down too fast in the brain, is to block that so it can increase the choline in the brain. And so from my side, eggs has always been a positive thing. But every now and again, this thing comes up with eggs is one of the top sensitivities in people. So can you maybe explain that a little bit and possibly why that would be the case?
Well, I mean, I think that you're right. They are wonderfully nutritious and they've got great nutritional properties to them. Only if somebody had a sensitivity, typically they need to not eat them or be careful with them or eat them less frequently or whatever it might be. So it can be a more common sensitivity and still be a great nutritious food. That's why I think it's important to really personalize things, because just because these are common doesn't mean that a child would have a challenge with them. Something like gluten, there's lots of other grains that can give fiber and things like that. It doesn't have the same, in my opinion, nutritional profile as something like eggs would.
Yeah.
Whereas if you removed it and you didn't really need to, you could probably get your nutrients somewhere else. But with eggs, if you remove it and you don't need to, you might be missing or might be getting rid of a source of a good, a source of good quality nutrients. That's why I think it's important to get a sense of what that individual does best with and what they don't do best with.
Okay. So, and then if somebody goes on one of these really strict diets, this is normally a diet that is only temporary, right? It's not something that they do for life, because I think when we go on these strict diets to address certain things, we tend to lose out on a lot of nutrients that comes through food.
Yes. Well, this is a good question because I see Christine in the comments is asking about this very question. Are these diets long-term, or can these intolerances be corrected? And then she wants to ask about oxalates in a second. It depends on the diet. It depends on the foods. It depends on the person. Some people have celiac and they have to be gluten-free their whole life. Some people have other types of gluten intolerance and they really do best with not having any gluten. Other people might have some of these food sensitivities because their gut is inflamed and leaky and it's more of a matter of them eating them frequently. So it's something like salicylates. They're so rich in nutrients. I like to try to keep as many in the diet as possible, or like to try to get them back to eating them, which is one of the reasons in my book I really talk about, well, how do you minimize the ones you need to restrict, and how do you improve what's underlying them causing the issue so that you can go back to eating more of them. In the case of Christine's question about especially oxalate sensitivity, this one is, it depends who you talk to. Some people, I've had clients that had high oxalate levels that did a low oxalate diet for a period of time, and now they seem fine with oxalates, and that does not seem to be a problem for them. They no longer have the high levels. They don't have symptoms related. People in the oxalate community, I don't want to speak for them, but my understanding is their opinion differs on that. They feel that oxalates are more of a plant toxin and everybody should minimize them, and that if you have a problem with them, you probably have a problem with them for the long term. But again, I don't want to speak for them. So if that's your thing, you can always find out more from them, and, get their opinion. But my experience has been that it's not, uh, it depends on the person if it's long-term or not.
Okay, great. Let me see. Do you think it's essential for anyone who has any of these conditions to include as part of their lifestyle safe detoxification together with diet changes to experience positive benefits?
Again, it's one of those things that it depends on what's going on for that person. Are they a person that has more challenges with detoxification, and are they a person that has had more exposure to toxins? Is that the best place for them to start as well? So that's what that question is a little bit hard to answer. I would say that there are people that do feel that detox has been very helpful. But it does depend on when you engage in it, along the process. Like, do you need to address constipation, digestion issues, leaky gut issues? Where is someone? Are they in a stage where detoxification is beneficial right now? And what are they detoxifying from? And what method would be best for that? So detoxification, parents have said it is helpful. So I don't want to dismiss it. Many find it helpful, but it is a big topic that is a little bit hard to kind of just say across the board because there's so many different factors.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. And I mean, and there's also so many things that you need to do to prepare for it, even when you want to do it safely, because there's a lot of people, they just read about detoxification and okay, I'm going to do a detox smoothie, or I'm going to take, chelators, or I'm going to just increase my minerals, or I'm going to take this binder, but the detoxification pathways aren't open. The lymph fluid is not flowing properly, and so on and so forth. So there is those concepts that needs to be considered as well as part of it. And for me personally, I'm not somebody that does detoxes all the time or whatever. I feel that part of the way you live your life, it needs to include those things to enable the body so that it can do what it needs to do.
Yes, I think that, the body is built to detoxify naturally, but it can't be overburdened with things.
Exactly.
Where it's using up all of its resources to handle everything new coming in. It needs to be able to have those resources like glutathione and things available so it can detoxify on a day-to-day basis. So yeah, I think it is important to get all of that proper stuff, but like I said, it's tricky if we have dysbiosis and other things.
Yeah, okay, great. No, so I think we feel the same about that one. Okay, so what supplements or nutraceuticals are the best to support ADHD and autism?
Well, I mean, simply usually starting with simple things. So a multivitamin mineral formula are found to be very helpful for ADHD and autism. There's good research on that. Getting good quality ones. You usually need some sort of a powder or a capsule or something. The gummies and the tablets are not going to usually have high enough levels. Also depends the form. The forms need to be good as well. So like a folate rather than a folic acid, those kinds of things. An essential fatty acid formula has been shown to be helpful for both ADHD and autism. And then from there, it might depend on whether somebody needs more magnesium, more zinc, more B6, more iron, less iron, like it really, at some point does depend on
the need of
what
the
their
person.
diet, what their diet looks like, what their genetics looks like, what underlying factors that might be using up some of these nutrients and things like that.
So would you say it is safe for like the basic ones, omega-3, to have their vitamin D levels checked? B vitamins to support, you know, if let's say you have symptoms of poor methylation, that B vitamins are important, because it's also not just folate that is important. It's also the B6, it's also the B2, and if I can remember correctly, possibly also B3. So, so there's, and normally it's best to take your B vitamins together instead of separate. So, so the B vitamins, and then I want to ask you about CoQ10. Can CoQ10 be a valuable supplement in these cases?
Yes, CoQ10 is very important for mitochondrial function. So if somebody needs more help in that area, that can be a very beneficial supplement. Yeah, I mean, all of those nutrients you mentioned are important.
Okay. All right, let's see.
And you have a good point there, because a lot of kind of over the counter, like, you know, kind of standard thing you pick up at the average store typically doesn't have CoQ10. Yeah. It might have all those other nutrients that you mentioned, but it doesn't usually have CoQ10, or it's in such small amounts or in a form that really doesn't have much of a therapeutic benefit to it. So usually,
I mean,
yeah.
I looked at some CoQ10 supplements for my one daughter that recently started getting migraines for I don't know what reason. So CoQ10 was like my one thing that I was looking at. And now she cannot actually swallow a capsule or a tablet. She really struggles with that. So I have to look for everything in liquid form or gummy form or whatever. And I was struggling so much to find something with high enough qualities. I mean, the one only had like 36 milligrams of CoQ10 in. I mean, that is just a waste of money. You're paying for a bunch of sugar. So it's definitely important to look at the quality and the quantity of the supplements that you're buying, and not just take the first thing on the shelf. Do the research and make sure you get the good quality.
Definitely. You usually get what you pay for in supplements. And in fact, it's funny you mentioned that, because I have when people, well, if we talk about it, you know, if people pre-order my book, one of the things they get is a supplement guide. So I put some of my favorite professional supplements in there, because people often ask, you know, how do I find good ones? And, you know, depending on the store you go to, there are some good ones you can get at the store. I'm not saying there aren't, but very often it's more the professional lines that are not available in the stores that are going to have that. And, you know, usually if you're going to get it even at a store, it's going to be often at more of a specialty type shop, right? So knowing your supplements can really be helpful. Like you said, you know, if you're going to spend the money, you might as well spend it on something
wisely.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, and just another thing, I'm looking at my glass of water that I have. It's got methylene blue in. So have you done any research on methylene blue for brain inflammation, or, you know, overall inflammation, to help reduce that?
I have not. I have a colleague that does a lot with it, but I have not, although he does say great things about it.
Okay, you know, because I started taking it a couple of months ago. So every now and again, I don't take it every day. So every now and again, I will have some in my water, because there's a lot of people that just put it straight on the tongue, but it burns. Wow. That's not my kind of thing. So I just put a couple of drops into the water. And this specific doctor who I found on Instagram spoke about it. And I mean, the studies that he quoted and stuff that he pointed out, there is such amazing benefits, especially for brain inflammation with methylene blue. So, I mean, it's not something I say somebody need to jump in and just go buy and go do and experiment with, but it's definitely worth looking at and doing the research. So that is just because I'm sitting here with my blue glass and I'm like, yeah, I remember that one too.
Well, anyway, very interesting. I always love researching new things, and like I said, yeah, I'll have to check it out. Yeah.
Oh, please do. I would love to hear what your opinion is eventually, because the stuff that I've heard was pretty good. So anyway, well, let's go.
See if there's any autism studies on it. I haven't seen.
Oh, that would actually be great. Yeah. Because I think the one that this specific doctor quoted was mostly for the older population that is with dementia and Alzheimer's. So it was more in that category. Yeah. Okay, so let's see. If people are interested in genetic testing, are there any specific type of tests that you would recommend?
Genetic testing. I mean, there's a lot of good tests out there. Well, the genes themselves need to be interpreted. So it's really the interpretation of the genes that I think is the most valuable part. And one of the ones that I've really found to be quite helpful is Intellex DNA. It's a company. They have a panel for neurodevelopmental conditions. And
wow.
I have had clients where, they'll have certain genes. I had one said, this makes them susceptible to ADHD, and sure enough, their big symptom that they were struggling with was ADHD. So
Wow.
I think, it was very interesting, and it's got a lot of good scientific referencing to when there is this particular SNP, the types of supplements and other things that can be beneficial for it. So I found that one to be really very, very interesting and advantageous.
Can you say the name again?
Yeah, and I'll spell it because it's so it's Intellex DNA. So INTELLXX DNA.
Okay. So this is a USA company, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So unfortunately, us here in Europe won't benefit from that.
Can you not order tests from other countries?
The ones that is advertised and available here, I mean, the MTHFR testing is not even very widely available here. So I have found one in London, and there is one here in Germany that is advertised online as well. However, if you look at the two different companies and what they offer and the support for, interpreting the test, the one in England looked way much better. So, yeah, but this whole entire package that you are explaining, I mean, that would be an absolute win for people.
It's pretty amazing, the information that's in there.
Yes, and I think it can be so helpful for people, I mean, I know of one specific mother that she's currently, on this journey and finding all these answers, and she would so much want to do genetic testing. And now she is based here, and she wanted to buy one of the tests from the UK to test her child for MTHFR. They cancelled the test because he's under 18. So there's that hiccups that we have over here, which, if you go out to other places, it's a little bit more available. Okay, so anyway.
All right,
let's see. All right, and this one is only ADHD based, because I'm not exactly sure if it benefits somebody with autism, but the role of exercise in ADHD.
What
Sorry.
is the role of exercise? It can be, I mean, definitely beneficial. I mean, exercise is so beneficial for so many different things, getting circulation going and helping blood sugar and all of that kind of good stuff. But there are studies showing that it's beneficial for attention and focus and mood, for impulsivity, neurotransmitter production. So lots of great research on exercise.
I've recently listened to an interview where the person that was interviewed said that she found studies that showed that exercise for ADHD is far superior than any medication there is. And for me, that was like a wow factor, because, I mean, I've got these two daughters, complete opposites, and I can see how exercise can benefit them both. One is interested, the other one has got zero interest.
Yeah.
And so exercise, just knowing that that is part of the answer to get that blood flow moving, to get the oxygen into the brain, to get that nutrients moving into the places they need to go. I mean, it's so important. So I don't know, how would this affect somebody with autism?
It has a good effect with autism too. I've asked every client I ever had, does your child do any sort of exercise and does it help? And every single one that I can remember, if they were doing it, it helped. It was a positive. I know just recently some people were telling me that exercise was very beneficial. They highly believed in it. And in part of the study that we did, there were different arms to the study and there were therapies and things, and that exercise, physical activity was beneficial. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. That's excellent. That's excellent. Okay, last question. For any mother or any parent or any person who might currently be struggling with either a child or anybody that they need to take care of, what words of hope do you have that could support them?
Well, I would say that keep going. And look at diet and nutrition, because it's something that you can do at home, that you have control over. You know, there's so many things that, I don't know, can be complex or we're not experts in, but we all have to feed our families. And it's something that you have the power right in your own kitchen. And the research shows it does help. So even if you haven't found the answer yet, to keep going and looking for it, because sometimes if there's a couple different triggers in, let's say, the diet, sometimes until you reach all of them, you may not see the benefit that you're looking for. So even if you've tried something already, keep going and seeing what else that you can find, because it might just be a tweak here or a tweak there that can make a really big difference.
Oh, that's fantastic. Julie, please show us that beautiful book of yours again so that people can know what to look forward to. Oh, I love the colors. I absolutely love it.
Thank you.
It's gorgeous. It's so gorgeous. Anyway, so this is something that people have to look forward to, and will be available from 18th of March, right?
Correct, but they can pre-order it now. If they go to personalizedautismnutritionplan.com/pre-order. So if they go to wherever their favorite retailer is and they order it, and then they go over to that website, I have all of a bunch of extras that can get them started right away. At 5 nutrition strategies to get started with, that supplement guide that I mentioned, some recipes and things. So if they want, they can get started right now while they're waiting for the book to come in.
Oh, that is exciting. Thank you. So just one last question. Will that book be available in Europe as well?
I imagine so. I haven't gotten I'll have to check the distribution at this point, but I would imagine it will be.
Oh, fantastic. Well, I'm looking forward to it. Julie, thank you so very much for your time and teaching us everything that you know, and, you know, just encouraging the mums mostly who are always helping the kids through everything, just, you know, empowering them and giving them hope. So I really appreciate your time. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me, and have a wonderful day too.
Thank you. Have a good night, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.